Hi everyone, my name is Lucy Niederman and I am a writer for Arts Management Magazine's NextGen mission, and today I'm going to be interviewing the lovely Izzy Bisges. Izzy is currently completing her master's degree in entrepreneurship in the fashion and creative industry with a focus on brand authenticity at the Condé Nast College of Fashion and Design in London, England. She recently graduated with her bachelor's degree from the University of Georgia's journalism program in 2022 after completing her study abroad program in London. Izzy has gained a large following on her social media platforms, such as YouTube, where her channel continues to grow as she succeeds in content creation and storytelling. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lucy.
Thank you. So my first question is related to your move to London. So I kind of wanted to know, before you made your move to London to get your master's, you had graduated from the University of Georgia after finishing a semester abroad in London. So I wanted to know, why did you choose to study in London in the first place, and how did it feel like for you when you first studied and arrived there?
I love this question because reflecting back on it now through my whole entire experience, it's a different kind of reflection and feeling.
Mhm.
So I first decided London because I was going to do Oxford. I had Oxford on my list. UGA, they had a program that allowed students from UGA to do an Oxford study abroad exchange. And it was a very prestigious program. Only a very, very few selected got selected. And I never got into that program. I applied for it. It got canceled because of COVID, first of all, too. And so I had to kind of pivot and figure out how I could still study abroad. And everything just kept getting canceled and pushed back. And I'm like, okay, I guess, the reality is that I'm never going to study abroad during my undergrad career. And then it started opening up again. London became open. And so I was like, okay, for me to do this, I have to push back my graduation date. And so that would make me a fifth year senior. And so I did it. I dropped one class, pushed that back, and then went to study abroad in London. And to say that it was life changing would be an understatement. It changed the whole path of my life. I went there and I remember, I mean, you can go back in my vlogs to the very first week and I talk about how much I love it here. And I'm like, I'm going to live here. This is amazing. I want to move back. And I did just that. I manifested it that moment. And so, all in all, chose London because Oxford sort of canceled. And then it became clear to me that London might also be a better fit because it's more of a city life, a really big city life. And Oxford is more of a small town. And so I could visit Oxford on the weekends, that would be fine. But I really wanted to live in a city that would really push my boundaries and culturally be by so many different kinds of people. And I did just that. I loved it so much, applied to the master's while I was out there to come back to London, got accepted into the program through the interview processes that I was doing. And then before I came home back to Georgia in America for the summer, I knew I was going back out to London for the master
Mhm.
program.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I feel like London is such a great place to choose, especially like you said, because you can travel to so many different parts of the world. You can get to Oxford by bus in just an hour or so. So I definitely agree that London is such an amazing place to study in. Um,
Yes.
and your first videos on your channel date back to late 2021, around November, and you began studying abroad in the spring of 2022. So I wanted to know, what made you want to start a YouTube channel in the first place? And did studying abroad in London kind of inspire you and factor into this when becoming more active on YouTube and posting more?
Absolutely. You totally read my mind on that. But starting my YouTube channel, it originated way before that. I have really old home videos of me directing old footage of me and my little sister. I have an older sister too, but she couldn't care less about us because she was too cool to hang out with us. And so my little sister and I, we would be so bored in the house. And that was before computers were too big. Like you couldn't do too much on computers. You can just play a few games.
Mhm.
And we had to keep ourselves busy. I had a flip, which is, I don't even know if you know what that is. It's like a
Flip.
flip cam recorder. And
Okay.
so we would record using that, and then I'd take it and then I'd put it on the computer and try to edit it with different softwares. I don't even remember what they were. But then iMovie started coming out. I started working and editing on iMovie, putting these little films together, telling a story, being creative. some of them were so strange. My mom is just like, I think she's going to be an actress. Like my parents thought I was going to be an actress because I was so bold and so just into storytelling. And so that's where the YouTube, I think, originated. And then I didn't spearhead YouTube. Of course, those are, way different people than me. I never even watched YouTube growing up either, YouTube channels or anything. I was not into it. And so, excuse me. And so I think it just started because I wanted to start documenting my life and having it on the web. And not only doing that, but I started to realize in my friend group and in my community that I was in that whenever I gave advice in a way, people respected it. And they were like, Izzy, like you should have your voice be more heard. Like you should start a podcast. You should, or just something like that. And so I was like, okay, I love videoing. I know how to edit. I love vlogs. I'm passionate about it. It wouldn't even be a job. It'd just be fun. And then it started going to, okay, for New Year's resolution, sorry, there's fire. There's like
You're good.
cops in the back
You're good.
in the city. But and then it went to I started manifesting it in a way, and I'm like, hey, this New Year's I'm going to start it. And then I didn't. So a couple of years went by where I was just too scared. I was nervous. I was too scared to put myself out there. Finally, the year came by where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then like figured out that I was going to London, and I was like, okay, this is the perfect time. I just need to do this because I think it's interesting. I think not that I'm not saying my life wasn't interesting before, because I think everyone's mundane life is also very interesting. There's also very key interesting things from each mundane life, but it inspired me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start it a little bit before. There's a few things I'm going to that maybe, I can just get the channel going. And then the rest is history from going
Yeah,
out to London and having those vlogs that I knew I would cherish forever. Even my kids, like
absolutely.
if anything happened, my kids would be able to see me at like 23 years old experiencing and doing everything in London.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of your videos, it's like you exhibit like those mundane moments, and kind of definitely your kids one day will look back and see all the stories that you've literally lived out, which is so exciting in your 20s and studying fashion and being in London, which I know is already just being in London is such a life-changing experience. And so speaking of mundane moments, it's a common theme that I've noticed throughout your YouTube videos and your content is how you tell stories and romanticize those small little moments throughout your day, whether it could be picking up a coffee or taking the tube somewhere or walking around the city, going to a pub. And I wanted to know, like, why do you believe as a creator, as a human, like, why do you believe those mundane moments, it's important to find them and to make the most of them for your channel and in general?
I feel very passionate about this because I used to live a life where I would not romanticize things, and I would look at the mundane things of my life and think of them as chores. And it really gets in your head of like, okay, I'm not actually living. I'm just like surviving. It's not, there's a difference between actually looking at everything with a different kind of viewpoint. And it's all about perspective. It is all about perspective. Everyone has different perspectives on life. Of course, that's from biases of how they grew up and things. But I think it's so important to show every single aspect of life because there was an era on Instagram, I would say, where everyone would post super highlight reels. Everything was so curated that I think now our generation, or there was just a tipping point of like, okay, this isn't real life. We're not sharing everything of our lives. And so I think it's super, super important because it helps the next person and it helps others. So when you hide those things and you pretend it's all fine, not only are you hurting yourself, but you're also hurting your community. You're also hurting your friends in a way because if you don't talk about these things or you're not talking about these little mundane things, then other people are going to see it and feel really bad about their life because they're going to be like, well, how is this person on top of every mountain? And I'm in so many valleys right now. Do they ever go through valleys to get to those mountains? And so I just think personally for my brand and my channel, I want to be as honest as possible without sacrificing myself as a person because there are some things where it's like, okay, maybe you do need to have a few things private because I'm a human being. other people are human beings, I think they would be able
Mhm.
to relate with that. But I share as much as possible. Like I'm even talking about my Accutane journey right now with my acne, and I do not like talking about it honestly, but I try to force myself and push myself to be like, okay, but this also might help so many other people going through this. And I have gotten so many Instagram messages too saying, thank you so much for even showing your pictures because I show progress pictures. And my face, I personally think looks horrid. It's terrible. But they're like, you've given me so much confidence. And so those little mundane things, like even romanticizing Accutane, or
Mhm.
just, I think romanticizing is more talking about it and more noticing these things. So
Mhm.
instead of just walking around town in London and just going with the flow, going with the crowds, that can get sad. I will take a pause if I see something beautiful. I'll take a picture of it. I'll, go get coffee and then just say three things I'm grateful for as I'm going to get this coffee because I'm so happy it's 9 a.m. in the morning. The sun's out in London. That's rare.
Mhm.
I get to walk to get my coffee, which is a
Mhm.
blessing in and of itself. And I have a mom and a dad and a family that care about me so much. And so these little thoughts are also going through my head as I go do these little things. And I think it emphasizes those acts, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. But it's super,
Absolutely.
super important for the brand and for anyone's brand. I think everybody should
Mhm.
do this and talk about it
Yeah.
because this is real life. It's not an act, it's not a TV show,
Mhm.
it's not a movie scene. It's every day to day.
Mhm. Exactly. Absolutely. I agree completely. I feel like it's like you said, it's so important to find little moments, whether it's walking to go get coffee, being grateful that we're able to walk and that we have the ability to take the tube and listen to our favorite playlist or whatever it may be, podcast on the way to a class, whatever it may be. So I definitely agree 100%. And my next question is related to your graduate program. So now that you are a graduate student, I've watched many of your videos where you have discussed your semester projects. So, especially being at the Condé Nast School, I'm guessing that the workload and pressure can be very intense. So, I wanted to know, how do you balance life in London, your social life, as well as you're preserving your mental health and making sure that you are preparing for the world post your graduate program? Because that's kind of what's next and upcoming.
Yes. So this
Yeah.
this question is very anxiety filled, which is a good thing. That means it's uncomfortable and it's pushing you. But it is a question that doesn't have an answer, I would have to say. So I'm going to say some few tips and tricks that I have done, but I personally don't think I haven't figured this out. And
Mhm.
honestly, if someone can figure this out, I think they would be a billionaire because there's life, you can only give so much of yourself and then so much of your full self to everything, if that makes sense. So like you could say go partying and then have a self-care day the next day, but you will not be the best version of yourself in your self-care day if you go out partying the night before, if that makes sense. So how do I mental health is super on the top of my list on these things, and especially since I'm on Accutane with this, it's a little bit more of like a jab at the mental health. But I think the way I figured it out is I figured out who I am as a person. And I struggled, I think, more with this during my college degree because the culture is really hard on partying and going out all the time. And I didn't really like doing that. And that is such an unpopular opinion in college, especially at an SEC school, University of Georgia. People are going out all the time, and there's really no time to balance other parts of your life, as in, self care, personal things, but also going out and being social, and then school. Like it's just crazy. But
Mhm.
I think what I do is I have a really good calendar. That is one thing. I color coordinate my calendar. I'm looking at it right now. It is my everything. It's the iCal. I use the iCal, but I
Mhm.
color coordinate everything. I have alerts. And I think that this actually makes me the most reliable person too to my community and to my friends and family. Because if I say I'm going to call them, I write it down. I write everything down in my calendar. So even little memos of like, oh my gosh, we should go to this museum. I'm like, okay, cool. What day and what time? So I can manage it well. And so I'm like, okay, I have this Friday, so I'm not going to go out partying or something or go have a couple drinks on Thursday. Like I just manage my time. And then I've also figured out I've pushed myself to the limit. And so now I know my limit. So now I'm like, okay, I can do a full day here, fill that whole day going out around town. But I know by nighttime, I am not going to be able to go out and hang out with friends because I know myself, I know my body, I'm mentally going to shut down. And so I won't plan anything, during that nighttime. I'll stay in and read and just be by myself. So I think there's little things to manage it. Everybody is different on how much they can balance. I know some friends who can balance so much more than I can, but I think it's just learning your limit. It's okay to push your limits to figure it out. It's uncomfortable, it's hard, and it's frustrating. But at least once you do it, you sort of know who you are as a person. And then you could start planning things, planning out your schoolwork. Like I had dates and times of exactly when I'm going to work on my master's things because I have the due dates. I know what's required of me. And I'm just a very responsible person. It's in my blood. I have a lot of respect towards that. I want people to respect me. So I try to manage my time really well. And I'm very communicative if I can't manage it well.
Mhm.
So I think that's the balance and how I've sort of
Right.
gotten it down.
Yeah, I feel like as college students, there's so much pressure to being able to manage your social life, and not everyone has the same social battery. Like sometimes there will be moments when you feel like you um, can hang out with your friends the entire day, but then at the same time, you know that you won't have the energy to get maybe a research paper done, or you won't have the energy to make other plans. So I definitely think that it's obviously up to the person. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And this next question is kind of related to what we talked about a little bit earlier on. So I definitely think that it is a common theme for young women like us to definitely compare our success to others based on what we see online. And I feel like throughout all of your videos, I've noticed that even when sharing vulnerable moments, such as your video when you moved to London and you were for your master's and you were kind of in an entire new space. And I honestly found that video so inspiring and comforting because I was also just moving to London during that time. I noticed that you always persevere and stay true to your beliefs. So speaking of balancing life, how do you stay motivated and true to who you are, and what you believe in as a student and human being in general, which you kind of answered in the last one a little bit. But I wanted
Yeah.
to know, how do you stay true to that in a world where social media tends to only show the highlights of our lives?
Yeah, I really love that. I I think I have such a moral code that I've always stuck to. And if something doesn't feel right to me, and I've always, let me rephrase this. I think that women have a superpower with their intuition. I really honestly do. And I know sometimes it can be faulty because we are human beings and it happens, but I have a very foundational moral code. And I think it's especially from my parents, my mom and dad, and how they raised us. For one, treat others how you want to be treated. Every man, woman is equal. Like, no matter who it is, they're all equal and they all deserve to be treated exactly the same way as anybody else.
Mhm.
Um, don't lie, don't betray people. There's just like little fine things that I totally believe in. I try to treat people as well as I can. I think being nice goes such a long way. And I think it's one of the most important things ever. And my parents, my mom and dad, they make me believe in a really great moral code. And I think I've always stuck by it ever since a kid. And I don't think it's ever done me wrong.
Mhm.
Karma has been good to me.
Mhm.
I'll like
Yeah.
I'll quote Taylor Swift on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Karma is my boyfriend. I do not have a boyfriend, but karma is my boyfriend.
Mhm.
I think what goes around comes around. And so I would never try to fall away from that moral code. Now, I'm human. I do it. It happens. And
Mhm.
that's another thing. I'm going to be honest about it and authentic because everyone messes up. No one's going to be a perfect saint or an angel. And I think that's how I kind of stick level-headed in a way. It's hard
Mhm.
though, because social media and, doing YouTube for the wrong reasons. And so before I even started my YouTube channel, I sat down and I made a whole entire brand guideline of like, how is this going to be? What am I doing this for? What is this for? If you can imagine in 5 years, like what would it be? who would it help? Like, how are you giving back? All these things. And I think that having that foundation, hopefully I won't steer from it. I mean, you never say never, but oh my gosh, I really don't think I will. And so I think that's my foundation in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that especially with social media, you see so many highlight reels and TikToks about people getting up at 5 a.m., going to a yoga class. And I definitely think that it's hard not to compare ourselves. And I feel like sticking to a moral code, as you said, so important, sticking true to
Yes.
who you are. So thank you for that. Um,
Yeah.
and next is a little bit related. What advice would you give to young women and people in general who are aspiring entrepreneurs, travelers, content creators, and just kind of growing up in this day and age with social media?
Yeah. So I'm going to give a piece of advice that I wish my younger self had. And I think that piece of advice is no is stands for the next opportunity, NO. And another great way to look at it, I think I heard this in a podcast once and it's always stuck with me. And it was like these two guys, and this one guy was mentoring this other one. And he was like, if I told you that your dream, whatever it was that you wanted really badly, if it was 20 no's away, what would you do? And the next person was like, I would go out and try to get rejected 20 times, no matter what I can, because at some point
Yeah.
you knew you're going to get that yes. And so he was like, well, that's life. That's how it is. There's only a certain amount of no's and rejection, whether it's little or huge, but there's only a certain amount of no's before you get that yes. And I think that is the best advice I could give any of those people is that don't let other people tell you no. When you hear no, don't think of it as a failure. Failure isn't really even a failure either. It's just a pivot point. Everyone fails. Look at Elon Musk. Like he's failed so many
Yeah.
times, but now he is the most intelligent and smartest guy in inventing things that are way past our realm of any kind of knowledge. And he's failed so many times, so many times. And so I think that's the biggest thing, especially for entrepreneurs, is that I'm still trying to grain this into my head. I'm like, okay, Izzy, I'll probably go back and listen to this little excerpt. I'm just kidding. But just don't take no as an answer. Just keep pushing. Oh my gosh, you know how many people told me that I wouldn't be able to have an Instagram, wouldn't be able to have a successful YouTube channel. There's so many people who are like, you're wasting your time. You're not who are you like to make a YouTube channel and inspire other people? But little do they know I have amazing direct messages in my Instagram telling me of how much my videos mean to them and how much they have helped them calm them down, calm their anxiety about moving to London, like all these things. I'm just like, this is exactly what I wanted. And so it's just this beginning too. Like we're gonna keep going. But you're gonna get no's. It's inevitable. You're gonna get failure. It's inevitable. Just keep pushing. And it's hard. Every time in my journal, like I think every week I'm writing, okay, Izzy, like we're not giving up. We don't give up. We're never giving up. Even though it's hard this week, we are still going to continue going.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's hard, especially as college students when you're applying to jobs and other programs and internships. It can definitely be very like it's not very inspiring when if you get a rejection letter or an email. So I definitely like think that the next opportunity, the no, is like something that I feel like I should also take for myself. Like it doesn't mean a no does not mean that you are going to fail. So that's
Yep.
definitely very important, I feel like, as well.
Yes. The no does not mean that you're not good enough.
Yeah,
It's not you. It's not you. You are worthy. You are worthy of it.
exactly.
And also, our job mentor. So we're in a workshop right now in our master's about applying to jobs. And the person goes, I don't want to hear that you can't find a job unless you get 60 no's. And like you've applied to over 100 people and you've gotten 60 no's. And I'm like, okay. So she's like, that's the beginning. So do not come to me saying, I can't find a job and you haven't applied to that many and gotten that many rejections. So that's just a little tip too.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that like seeing everyone on LinkedIn and seeing everyone succeeding, it can definitely be like kind of not disheartening, but disencouraging for sure. So I
Hmm.
definitely think I'll definitely take that into consideration when applying for my next steps.
Yes.
So thank you so much. And then we have one more question, and this is a little bit of a fun one. So lastly, I wanted to know, who are the creatives or people you have felt the most inspired or motivated by when pursuing your career?
I have to give it to one of my girls, Taylor Swift. I know all my friends are gonna like they always laugh about it, but that woman is so hardworking, and she is literally an entrepreneur from bottom to the highest success you can think of. And she started out so young, and she's such a hard worker. So I think Taylor Swift totally, and the way she writes her lyrics is just amazing. She's intelligent, brilliant. She's just, of course, everyone should look up to her. She's an amazing role model. And so someone I really look up to and I really love. Like her documentary too is just amazing if you haven't seen it. Um, and then the second one I would have to say is Sarah Blakely. Do you know who Sarah Blakely is?
I do not know.
Okay. Sarah Blakely, that's okay. No, you don't have to know her, but I'll explain it. So Sarah Blakely is the founder of Spanx. So
Okay.
you know of
Wow.
Spanx.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yes, yes. So she's the founder of Spanx, and her origin story is insane. It's awesome. You definitely have to listen to it. There's a podcast. It's called, actually, I'm not sure exactly, but it's an entrepreneurial podcast.
Sarah
But she
Blanks?
started Sarah Blakely.
Blakely.
Sarah
Okay.
Blakely. But pretty much she was selling computers door to door, trying to make a living, created this little thing, pitched it to people. I mean, like blood, sweat, and tears trying to get this to work. And she got it to work. Now she's the sole owner of the company. I'm not sure if that's still, but back then she was, and she was a billionaire. So just insane. Definitely had to listen to that. But she is super motivational. I follow her on LinkedIn as well. And every week or so, she has a coffee cup and it has a little bit of inspirational quote for the week. So it'll say just something really amazing. And she'll always just write a little caption like, don't ever give up, or just little things. It's more inspirational than just those cheesy little lines. But those two, I would say, are the creatives I think that I look towards to the most. Of course, there are so many others around me and just doing amazing. I'm always looking around, trying to find new inspiration and new creators. And of course, I'm still like, I am tiny. I compared to so many others who are so much bigger in the technology space. But it's really amazing always having inspiration everywhere. But
Yeah.
those are the two people I think I grew up on a little bit more, and just
Yeah.
always looking up to that.
Especially Sarah with, Spanx, and just especially when it comes to fashion entrepreneurship, she is definitely a trendsetter, and I definitely have to look into her.
You definitely, it's
Yeah.
such an amazing podcast. Her story is, it's just, it should be a movie. It's crazy. You have to listen to her. And her spirit is just, she's just the knit and grit of like, I believe in it and I'm going to keep pursuing. It's just crazy. You have to listen to it.
I love that. And then of course Taylor, she is just the best like definition of a businesswoman, but she's also a storyteller like you, and
Mhm.
she's so
Yes.
creative, and absolutely I love her as well. Um,
Yes.
but that kind of wraps up all of our questions. So thank you so much to you, Izzy, for sitting down with me today, and thank you to everyone watching. Izzy, can you tell us, how can the viewers find you on social media platforms, and maybe share that?
Yeah, of course. So everyone can find me at Izzy Bisges on YouTube channel first. That is like my number one, just because I have a bigger voice there, and you can get to know me a little bit better and who I am, and vice versa. Because commenting, I can easily respond back. But I also have an Instagram, which is my second platform, I would say, and it's at Izzy Biscuits, and everything's linked there. So I do have a TikTok. I don't post that much on it. Um, Pinterest, I'm on Pinterest too. Don't post that much on it really. So YouTube and Instagram are my top two right now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much to everyone for listening in, and Izzy, we can't wait to see what you do next. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well,
All right.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you.